What do you make of the presence of Chinese militia vessels yesterday? Is this a message from China that we should be, concerned about?
Well, I mean, the presence is quite expected, given, of
Mm-hmm.
course, that the Balikatan is, of course, one of the most important components of enforcing international law and ensuring that the rules-based order is kept intact, particularly in the West
Mm-hmm.
Philippine Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is, of course, against the interests of narrowly driven powers that have expansionist interests. So, of course, such presence and dissatisfaction is quite expected, and we may also expect more statements coming out of Beijing. But of course, there is that realization that Manila's political will to exercise its sovereignty and sovereign rights cannot be easily bent, given, of course, the current trajectory we are on today.
Now, Don, this is the biggest Balikatan in history. Now, why do you think more nations or soldiers joined this year's exercise? And what do you think is the significance of this huge number? And I'd like to ask also, the Typhoon missile system was unveiled this year in this exercise. What is the significance of all of these?
Well, the 2024 Balikatan has a lot of important significance, and it has a lot of important developments that we need to take into consideration. Well, first of all, it is clear that Manila is more willing to play a more active role in securing its sovereignty and sovereign rights. As we can see, exercises will be conducted within Philippine EEZ. Second, of course, we can see the participation of the Philippine Coast Guard. The active participation also denotes a whole-of-a-nation approach based on the national security policy of the Marcos Jr. administration. Third, of course, is we can see that in line with your recent statement, there is more convergence between the U.S. and the Philippines, and of course, the deepening and broadening of the alliance network in order to ensure that the right mechanisms are in place to enhance Philippine deterrence against negative forces in particularly. So what we can see here is that there is an initiative from all sides to do more to
Right.
ensure the stability of the region.
Right, but given that this Balikatan is the biggest to date, no, in our history, do you think this year's Balikatan exercise will worsen our tension with China?
Well, we have to understand that the Balikatan has been going on for decades, and it is aimed at enhancing joint preparedness, capacity building, interoperability, right, among like-minded partners. And of course, with or without China, such drills would have eventually still taken off, given the continued convergence of interests of states to play an active role in the region. But of course, given what is happening today in the West Philippine Sea, where we have China pursuing its expansionist forces, this actually adds more significance to the Balikatan. But again, it is a defense-oriented framework that seeks to merely secure the status quo rather than provoke it. And I think that it is quite clear that everything is based on international law. And everything that is done by the Philippines, no matter what degree, would be seen as an irritant by Beijing that seeks to solidify its sphere of influence. So I think from that end, it is expected that we would not see it in a positive light.
Don, there are two schools of thought with this recent or ongoing exercises. One is it may make China more aggressive. Well, the other school of thought is it may make them more at least passive for the moment, because we're showing a stance that we can defend ourselves when the time comes. All of these nations will come to our aid. Now, what do you think is the real message we're sending to China with this Balikatan exercises?
Well, it is clear, the message is very clear that the Philippines, though seeking to engage with Beijing in multiple levels, open lines of communication are maintained, economic relations are continued. But the Marcos Jr. administration has clearly cited that what is taking place in the West Philippine Sea should be based on the interests of the Filipino people and Philippine national interests. And the Philippines, despite seeking amiable relations with China, would not be acting like a sitting duck, and it would obviously have to do what it has to do to ensure the stability of the region. And this is, of course, in line with the comprehensive archipelagic defense concept, which puts a people-centric approach to ensuring the stability of the West Philippine Sea, keeping it open for every Filipino and securing the inalienable right of every Filipino to utilize the resources that we have there. So I think the messaging, as far as we're concerned, is pretty clear. But of course, China will wait. China is trying to assess how far it could go in provoking and bending the political will of Manila short of war. And we have seen the escalation of gray zone activities. But again, it's a sit and watch position. What we have to ensure is consistency on our part.
Right.
All right, so much to talk about, but so little time. Thank you very much for joining us today, Don Mclain Gill. He's a geopolitical analyst and a lecturer at De La Salle University.
Thank you.